Hi everybody, it's Jeff VW here, and today I want to talk about how I spent my time during COVID-19. And if you can guess, it's mostly LEGO related. So, we'll start off in March of 2020. About March 15th we went into lockdown, and I already had a built LEGO version of the Royal York Hotel in Toronto, Ontario. I had also built Union Station during the winter months just before this, and when I built Union Station, which sits right in front of the Royal York Hotel, the scale I used was a few studs larger than this Royal York Hotel model. So as you can see by the picture here on the left, the original model had about 9 studs across for each of these towers. 7 studs in the higher portion, and I needed to increase it to 8 studs in the 3 towers to give me those extra 3 brick lengths of space to fit properly in with Union Station. So I went on a project in March to start to enlarge Union Station. And you can see by the image here on the right that it is the main center column of the window was increased in size. And the picture here on the left shows me rebuilding the structure internally to allow for a little bit wider length. It's turned into a fun project, and I enjoyed it, and it was a good way to start the beginning of quarantine. Then we got into April. As you can see here, I've finished building at least the first section. There's actually 3 sections in the Royal York Hotel, or sorry, 2 sections in the Royal York Hotel. The main building, which was built in the 1920s, and then there was an expansion that would go beside here that was built, I think, in the 60s, I believe. I could be wrong, and I might be off in the years. But anyway, it's been a while since I've done the research. Coincidentally, anybody living in the BC area may recognize this structure as well, because there's a similar designed building that was built by the railway companies in BC as one of their hotels. So Toronto just had the extension built onto it later. So anyway, there's a picture of both of those models together. Let's go to the next slide. So in May of 2020, I started working on the rail yards behind Union Station. So this is a raised area just to go over the road. So you can see here on the left, there's a little bit of the road, not much on this side, and then the pedestrian walkway underneath. So I tried to model this as best as I could using Google Maps to look underneath on the roadways to see what was underneath. So the holes here represent the doors going into the underground area of Union Station, or the ladders or the stairs going up to the track levels. So this project took a bit of time. It continued through May and into June as well. So here's I'm moving across, and as the track gets closer to the east side of the city, or of the building, the tracks start to narrow and condense down a bit. So I was trying to do that as best as I could as well. Go into June and July. So I started building the roof structure of the Union Station to match what was being done currently. There's a rebuild going on where they're rebuilding the roof, and they've created this nice glass area above. You can also see in the second picture that the second half of the Royal York Hotel is on the back as well as some great ball contraption items that I was working on, which is another type of Lego build that I'll talk about shortly, because I was already starting to work on those here. Also in June, July, I started building a spaceship. I've always been a big fan of Gulf Oil's livery of race cars, which was always an orange and a lighter blue. And I always wanted to build something in this livery. I didn't want to build a race car though, so I thought, hey, why don't I build a spaceship? So I started prototyping a bit of a design of a spaceship, kind of like a racing, a fast racing type ship. This model is extremely flimsy, especially around the front here, just because the connection points are not as great as I'd want. And it's also hard to work in these 2 colors because there's a limited palette of pieces. So as I went into August, I also built another version, which is a white and gray version, and that was based on the parts at the back here that I had a sufficient amount of to be able to build it. This one's a lot more stable, and you can see this white, the orange and blue one's a little more flushed out at this point. I also went a little crazy and took a bunch of these Lego brick separators and started decorating them with eyes because that was just something fun the Lego community was doing during the month of August. So I was just playing with all the different types of eyes. Also in August, I started working on a project that I had on the back burner since 2009. Back in 2009, around 2009, this weird looking little engine exhaust piece came out. And I had the opportunity to work with Lego on a project in Denver, Colorado. And in that area, that the office that we were in, there was a build space. They had a bit of a Lego build room where you could get some parts and work on ideas. So at that point, I had built this little tiny corridor. And I thought, well, it's not tall enough to hold an actual Lego minifigure, but it was able to hold these little Lego dwarf figures. So at the time, I thought, hey, I'd love to build something spacey that we use those as corridors. And at that point, I thought, oh, well, it would have to be dwarf sized. So come back to August 2020, I have a lot of time on my hands. So I started working on a newer version that was able to hold a minifigure. So it was a little bit scaled out. And this was my first prototype. Now I ended up changing the connection here on for the middle piece due to the lack of these silvery parts. So let's go to the next picture and see what we did. So what I ended up coming up with was still using these parts, but I've got a yellow trim down the side, and I built myself a little corridor. I put some lights in it to just give it the effect that it was actually a space corridor going through a building. So this led me to my next project also in August, which was, well, I've got a space corridor, so now I think I'm going to need a place to attach that corridor to. So I started working on the idea of this landing area, this landing plate. So down here, or this section here, is kind of like a drop surface with some labeling on it. My thought is that these doors, these striped area, these doors would slide back and a platform would come up. And in the background, you can see the opening of that hole and a couple other areas. So this project didn't really get as far as I wanted to. I did work on it into September, which I'll go to the pictures for now. Where I was doing some backroom areas. These blue pieces are being replaced with some orange ones, which I finally got in a few months ago. I just haven't come back to it. But just working with stairs and railings and stuff like that. Now, as I said, this project is kind of on hold. After working on another project in February, March of this year, I'm going to revisit this one and kind of rebuild it to work into that system that I've developed for the other one. Let's jump back into still in September. So I managed to get out and actually visit a friend in September. We were both of our zones were green zones. We had very few cases for COVID, so I asked if one of my friends if I could come up and visit, and she said for sure. And we wanted to work on a project. So this was the beginning of a project we were working on. It's related to the Royal York Hotel. Right beside the Royal York Hotel in Toronto is the Royal Bank Building. And part of the outside area of the Royal Bank Building is a staircase that goes into the underground area, like into the path system in Toronto. So this is just some work that I was doing to play and figure out how to build these stairs. So I love doing this type of work because it's just weird angles. It's trying to figure out how to make something from real life in Lego form. In this case, some of the white parts are here. At least these three white parts at the bottom are here just because I didn't have them in gray at the time, but they'll be ordered and replaced as when we get to that point. So part of that visit, we managed to get the first part of that building built and figured out. This is a weird angle building. It's actually two pieces. So there's another building, there's another tower goes in behind. But we laid it out. I brought my Union Station in Royal York as well, to see how it would fit. We also realized that we would like a bit of a road here. This road that's on here is temporary. It's just to figure out some widths. But as part of this, in the later months, October, November, December, I built out this whole side by about another 4 studs. I don't think I have any other pictures of that right now. But anyway, moving along, let's go into October. So September, October, I bought a new couch in my living room, and it hadn't been delivered yet at this point. But I had a couch upstairs that I needed to relocate, and I've got a room in the back of my house in my basement, that up until this point was just had a few tables in it and had a bunch of Lego models on it that the kids would play with. Kids are getting a little older, not playing with Lego as much anymore, so they really needed a space to hang out in with, maybe have sleepovers in. So we created a bit of a gaming space. So this room currently isn't being used as much just because it's a little cool, but I've got to work on that with some new insulation or something. But anyway, this is a project that took me through the month of October. Really enjoyed it. Got a lot of experience on building a studded wall and how to figure out the wiring and all that stuff. It was, it was fun. All right, let's go into November. So in November, I took a spaceship I used to have, which is this one here on the left side of the screen. And I built one of these back in the early 2010s, for as just something I built, and I brought it to a Lego event, one of our Brickfest events in Toronto. And I had built a couple of these, or I had built one of these. And every year at this event, we do a charity auction. And what tends to happen is people that have built models that they like, they bring them or they donate them to the auction so that someone else can have it. So I had donated this one to the auction, and one of my good friends, Dave, ended up winning the auction for it. Um, so I didn't have it anymore. So I got to thinking, hey, I'd like to build my own. I'd like to rebuild it myself. So what I ended up doing over here on the right side is I built a frame, and I actually built 3 of them, that I could use to maybe build different styles of vehicles. So that's what I ended up doing over the month of November. Was I built that frame, and I built kind of like a 1940s or World War II vintage type fighter with the two tails. I built this ship here with Vic Viper type design, which is a video game reference where it's a spaceship that has wings coming out of the sides, points coming out of the front, and a single tail. And I also built a larger version of the vehicle as well, not using this frame, the existing frame, but I built one based on the shape of it. And this is more of a cargo vehicle. So also in November, my couch came in. So part of my couch efforts or part of my couch purchase, I bought an L-shaped couch. And I needed to have a shelf or something behind. So after doing some research on the Googles, I came across this idea for a behind the couch shelf. So in November, I bought the lumber, and I basically built and stained a shelf, and dropped in some outlets as well, so that my kids could, charge their devices and stuff while we're sitting at the couch. Really like the look of this. I probably need to do a little bit of work on it this year, just because the corner brackets here I never stained, and when the blinds are up, you can see the wood. So I might go back and do another staining on this just to finish it off. I think there's also a few nicks when I was drilling the holes. I think the drill slipped and I caught a few nicks on the wood on the top, so I might put some filler in and restain that. Anyway, that takes care of November. On to December. December and January are kind of a mix with Christmas going on and everything. There wasn't a lot of building that went on, but I definitely did a huge sorting project. I had bins piling up of sets that needed to be taken apart. Moving that Lego or converting that back room from the kids' Lego room to a gaming room meant that I had a lot of excess sets that we didn't really have room for. The kids weren't playing with much, so we decided to take them apart and put them into the collection. So When I do my sorting, I sort by color first, and then I take each bin of color and sort it into the back walls or into the walls into the type of plate. Very methodical with my sorting because if I want a part, I want to be able to get it right away, know that I have it, and if not, then I know I need to order it or whatever. So the first picture here is basically my pre-sort, the first round of sorting all done. Everything's done by color. And then through the month of December and January, I worked through this stack of bins and eventually pretty much finished. I still have a few bins of small things like minifigures, which are a little more difficult to sort. Also, part of that sort led me to do a reorganization of my room. I had, as you can see in the back picture here, there's a couple of different types of bins for the bigger bins, and I'm converting them over to use more of these plastic Home Depot style bins, which are just a lot nicer to use. They fit better into my system. So I, as a result of this sort, I ended up buying a bunch of these bins and doing a room reorganization as well. So that was most of January and February, or most of December and January, and it even led into February. Here is a couple of shots of the room post-sort. You can still see a few bins here and some insulation that I need to put up in the roof. But to me, it's a lot neater than it was. As I was doing this sort, or as I was finishing this room reorganization, I was putting some shelves up on my wall here, or some models up on my shelves. And I was looking at this area and going, well, I don't like it just being all white with all the cords hanging behind it. So I would like to decorate this somewhere, and I'd like to put models on some kind of a display. And that gave me the idea of physically building a Lego shelf display that I could take out and bring to shows and display, but also just make it kind of more interesting for when you're looking at it on the shelf. So that became my February project, and even into March. Um, So I had a few things. I had a bunch of these storage containers, and I had a monorail train that was on that shelf, and I also had a spaceship that actually carried these containers. So my original idea was a little storage area for all the containers here, and then over in this side was where the spaceship would sit. Now, turns out the spaceship's a little bigger than I thought, and it wouldn't quite fit on this display. So I ended up having to rework it. Which we'll see into the March pictures. Also in February, there was a Lego contest, not run by Lego, but one of our friends in the Lego community. Every once in a while, we do these contests. Like someone will just create an idea, like a Star Wars contest during the month of May, that type of stuff. And this particular contest was to build a vehicle or something using certain colors. So in this case, it was the orange, this darker gray, this sand green color, and whatever you built, if you were using windows or whatever, you need to use a clear window. So it was quite interesting building something along this line because it was being what we wanted to build, or what what you had to build was dictated um, by the palette. Like the palette was already determined. So the sand green and orange are colors that don't have a huge amount of parts for it. I'm a little more fortunate because I love sand green and I've been collecting this color for a while, so I had a little bit more than most. And this is actually an orange brick separator on the back that we use to separate Lego bricks. But it's always fun when you can throw something like that in. So this is almost the final version of what I built. I don't know if I actually have a picture of the final version, but this contest ran through the month of February into early March, so this is what I had built. So, still in February, getting back to my hanger, I built a lot of this hanger in February. As I was building, I decided to change it up a bit, and this is my original concept here of having a whole bunch of bins just along the edge of the front, and maybe some in the back. You can see here this still has the original layout that I designed, and there's a train track here as well that would hold containers, like a container carriers. This pillar is temporary for the record. So I kind of didn't like this original idea where the containers were all stacked on one side and the ship was here. Again, the ship was larger than I thought. So I changed it over a bit, and I went with containers being all the way along the edges. The train's still here, the monorail's still here, and this is more of an area for maybe the lifting vehicles, which I still need to build, and that'll be a project on it to itself. Vehicles to be able to lift these containers. And my thought is, this is the first shelf. The second shelf, which would go in beside this on that display case, would be where the ships are actually parked in, and so these lifters would be bringing the bins in, type thing. Okay. Into March, still working on my Space Hainer. I started working on a door design using one of the original 1978 logos for Space. We now call this Classic Space because this was our first iteration of Space. I was building a big door and I wanted to put something in it. I'm like, well, why don't I work through and build this circular planet with the ship whooshing through as a tribute to that. And the color scheme is also based on that 1978 set of sets, the blue, gray, yellow, and black. So yeah, I built an opening door. One of my funner things to build, and one Lego stud is this length, so I'm having to do a lot of offsetting of the bricks, of the plates, in order to get a bit of a curve. And you can see that through the door as it opens and closes and on the back end of the doors here. Okay, into April. We're almost done. So in April, I finally 99% finished this display. I ended up adding a pedestrian walkway on the other side. Shortened this out a bit. I still need to do a little work, as I can see there's a bit of a bend in this track. It looks like it's dropping down a bit. But I mostly finished, so I put it up on my display stand. I'm going to get some lighting in here as well at some point, and once I do that, I will probably run all the wires through this area up front, up top here that you see with all the Lego, with all the holes, and then I'll build some kind of cover to hide those wiring, to hide all the wiring. So I just have a few shots of this and some of the interior shots through these doors that I created. Just to kind of set the scene. I think this looks a lot better than a plain brown shelf. So, the other thing that kept me going through COVID, I discovered during the summer months, I discovered that there are some friends that are doing Lego chats. Now, this top group, Old Gray Bricks, these are the guys who created that contest that I was talking about with the gray, green, and orange spaceship. So I started watching these guys through the earlier months of July, August, September, and participated in their chats, like just on the side of the YouTube, adding in the chats. And as time went on, some of these guys knew me. They ended up inviting me to join, so I'm now a fairly regular attendee of Old Gray Bricks. I log in when I can and have a conversation. From this particular screen, I know the guy above me, the guy below me, and the guy to my left. Beyond that, sorry, the guy to my right, I should say. I might have got my left and rights confused because I'm a little backwards today. Beyond that, all these other guys I have met through online chatting. Boone Builds over here is actually from the first season of Lego Masters, which was a show that aired in the United States last year, pre-COVID, or just they finished filming pre-COVID, but it aired during the first few months of the COVID epidemic. So, in early March, well, actually, I think March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, I wasn't doing anything because, well, quarantine. So in early March, I started my own chat, and just this last week, I had 5 people join in on this chat with me. People that, I know, well, myself, I know the 2 guys here on the left. These other 2 people I've met through chats and stuff like that. So I'm starting my own Ontario chat or I shouldn't say Ontario chat, I should say Canadian chat. Right now, everybody in this chat is from Ontario. So the last thing I did was, the last thing I want to show was just this little video here. People in the Lego hobby are always coming up with cool things, and I wanted to share this video. I don't know if the audio will play. It's not important if it does, but if it does, it's not important if it doesn't. But if it does, there's some TV playing in the background as well. But I just want to, play this, see how this works.
Excuse me, my honey is dipping.
Oh, there you go. So this is currently standing in my living room on my fireplace. It's I think they call it a tensory model. So it doesn't look like it can physically do what it's doing, but the weight of the model is being supported by this small chain. It wants to drop down, but because it wants to drop down, it also wants to turn and pull this way, which it can't do because these two chains are holding it in place. So it's basically sitting there floating in the middle of the air and seems to be impossible. Anyways, that concludes my little chat about what I've been doing during COVID. I'm sharing this onto my YouTube channel, VW Bricks. I'm also recording this because we had a conversation at work the other day about what we've been doing during our time, and I was like, well, for me it was mostly Lego, but I don't want to talk about it to everybody for 20 minutes. So I figured I'd throw up a video link on our internal chat at work, and if anybody wants to watch it, they can. So if you are watching it and you want to see more, VW Bricks is my YouTube channel. You can just search for that. I'm not going to say like and subscribe. I mean, do it if you want. If you don't, that's fine. But I'm trying to post videos every week or so with some interesting news and parts. I love new parts. Ignore the dusty Lego bricks in these pictures. I've been doing background pictures for all my videos, and I just open a bin and snap a photo. So that's why these bricks are looking a little dusty, because I think, well, sorry, that or just the quality of the camera. This is like a 4K image, and it's being zoomed in a bit so to fit the screen. So anyway, thanks for watching. If you made it all the way through, great. If not, it's okay. Have a good day, and we'll see you next time.